Okay, welcome to the first trial of the Dungeon Creation Live. I am the DMG, and joining me today is no one other than whoever is watching this and in the comments. So first of all, I just need you to realize that there is a slight delay on this, and if you could please, if you can't hear me or anything like that, please type that in the comments now so that I can check that out. And what we're going to attempt to do today is build one level of a dungeon, but I'm going to make it on the fly, so I don't have anything prepared. All I have with me is the 3.5 Monsters Manual. I do have the 5th edition as well if you want to swap to that, but that's all I have as a reference. So welcome to everyone who's here. I know Trenton and John are in the chat already. If you are watching, please just give us a notification that you are there. And so really what I wanted to do was just go through the process of doing something on the fly. So normally the way I play is I just sit down and start actually creating things as the players are walking around. So we can just start that entire process as we go. So what I'd like you to do in the comment section is give me an idea of what sort of area you'd like the dungeon to be in. So it could be something like a standard underground dungeon. It could be a Egyptian pyramid. It could be a sub-aquatic dungeon, so it's underwater. It could be something in the clouds. It could be inside a creature. So what I'd like, just the people that are watching, just pick what you'd like to go into, and we'll see where we can build this to. So I'm not going to make it super huge. It's not going to be like a 15 level dungeon or anything. It's going to be something very, very basic. So what I'm going to do then is we'll switch to this layout here, where I will demonstrate we'll just loosely draw out what's happening in the dungeon, what everything's going to be. So if you can start sending through suggestions of what you'd like to see, that would be great. And yes, I do acknowledge that there is a delay between me talking and them actually being things coming through. So on the chat window here, you will see the things that are recorded, because obviously when YouTube publishes this, they delete all the comments. Well, they're stored somewhere on their servers, but the comments are never there, so that's why I embed them into the video. So John says a Cragmore hideout. Yeah, we'll just try to something new, something small. Really taking any kind of suggestion you can give me, and so just so we can make it up as we go along. Okay, so Popeye says, how about an ancient tomb of a king or pharaoh with booby traps and curses, undead with the king as the boss? How about catacombs under a church? All right. So let's try and combine the two. Let's say that it's a church built on top of an ancient tomb of a pharaoh. So it's a desert theme. So let's go with a desert theme. All right. First round fireball. Thank you for joining us. So Tomb of Horrors. All right. So first of all, you got to think of how people are actually going to enter this this dungeon per se, and so we've already established it's in the desert. So and there would be a some sort of religious entrance. So we're going to have some kind of temple built in the desert out of sandstone, that is built on top of a pharaoh's catacomb, or pharaoh's tomb. So so thematically, there'll be we'd have some sort of oasis, and I can just do some quick illustration here to get where we're going, to change the colors and things, so we're all on the same page here. So excuse the rough drawing with the mouse. So your typical oasis sort of things with the palm trees, and then a temple structure. Temple tend to be things with columns and arches and things like that. Now it would have to be something quite open because it's the desert, and there's probably going to be a lot of sand dunes and things around. And I need ideas for a name for this temple, and also a name for the pharaoh who is buried here, so you can start suggesting those sort of things. Okay, so there'd be, because of the sand and the wind swept and everything like that, you'd have a lot of sand piled up on this, and so one would assume that the entrance is obscured in some way. So you don't want to make it terribly difficult for them to find the entrance, so it would be a matter of doing a check to find that the actual sealed doorway is buried behind these sandy areas. So as the characters approach, they come across the sand dunes, they do checks around it, and there's no windows or other doors or whatever, but obviously there's sand piled up against the walls in the front underneath the columns, which really is suggestive of an entrance. So skeeters, what does skeeters mean? Alright, so suggestive of an entrance. You've got all this sand piled up against the door, and eventually the characters have to clear that away. And the door should then obviously be thematically something that would suit. So in the desert, it's highly unlikely that a wooden door would have survived, so we'd have a stone door of some kind, and then it's a decision as to whether that stone door is something that is locked or is sealed in some way. Being that this is a temple, I would suggest that it's probably not sealed. It's just a doorway that can quite easily be pushed open. So you've got the sort of puzzle of the concealment. You don't want to go to any further length in terms of opening it up. So Popeye suggests Khaldun. That can be the Temple of Khaldun. Temple of, it's getting really big here. Khaldun, Khaldun. Alright, this is very big, so I'm just going to reduce this down. Okay, so again, being a desert sort of temple, it's most likely that that it's not going to be something with a significant amount of furniture and stuff in the actual temple. It's more likely to be made out of stone, and one would assume also that being close to the oasis, you probably have the water source is going to come into play. So let's have that it opens up into a main area where there is a nice pool of water in front of an altar. So I'll just draw this quickly. So as the characters enter, they see a large pool of water. Okay. Excuse the crudeness of this. I'm not a mouse drawer, I am a pen drawer. So, and then in front of the pool is an altar there. And we can probably then also have some inscriptions and things on the walls that characters with ancient language skills would be able to decipher. And the easy ones would reference Khaldun. All right, but the more difficult ones would reference the person lying beneath in the actual tomb itself. So, have we had any suggestions yet? Not yet. Hang on one sec. I'm just trying to make sure that I'm getting all the comments through here. They keep changing all the live streaming functions in YouTube, so every time I do this it's another learning curve. So I'm just going to the actual event itself, make sure I'm pausing and muting here. Okay. Alright. Okay, so we've got stone temple and stone floor, stone walls, inscription on the walls, and we're still waiting for a name of the guy who's buried below, but essentially a big pool of water that's coming from the oasis outside, and the altar here. So on the altar again should reference Khaldun. Now I'm thinking, to make this interesting, the actual entrance to the tomb is through the water. So rather than being through any of the walls or through any of the flooring or anything like that, we actually make it a little bit more interesting and actually have an entrance in the bottom of the water. So when characters look into the water with a simple perception check, they will be able to see that there is something at the bottom. So this requires them to actually go down into the pond and then explore what's at the bottom. Okay, so let's do then. So as you're going down into the pond, you're then faced with the pond goes down. So the water goes down for about 10 feet, and then there's a passageway that continues out towards, let's make it back towards the oasis itself. So that passage would then be, let's say, 30 feet. So I'm going to just draw this here, make it a little bit easier. I should probably just do this in a separate layer and just delete the layers as I'm going. That would be the intelligent thing to do. So I'm just going to create a new layer here. Okay. Fen Yang, ruler of the scarab. Okay. Fen Yang, ruler of the scarab. Okay, let's do that one. The size is way too big. 18. Here we go. Fen Yang, ruler of the scarab. Oops, too small now. Okay. So we're heading down in this pond, and we're now heading forward. So here we've gone down into the pond, and there's this passageway heading approximately 20 feet forward. So this should then open up into another area, and it should be quite low. So let's say the ceiling is only 5 foot, because it's going to be underneath the temple structure itself still. So you rise up in through the water here, and there is this this small room that is 5 foot in height. Okay, so from there we want to establish a choice. So we want them to make a decision as to whether they go one way or another. So I think what we'll do is we will create 2 stairwells down here. Now, there has to be, the way I normally do it is you kind of want them to head in one direction. So to make the choice slightly easier for them, you don't want to sit there and umming and ahhing for half an hour as to whether left or right. So we need to think of something that makes them want to go in a certain direction. So what do you think there should be that will make someone want to go in a certain direction? Now I'm just going to go through some of the other things that people have written here. So Ruben says an underground military staging point of the bandit would be cool. It would be cool, but we have decided on the pharaoh tomb underneath a temple in the desert. Lord Cyphorus, or Cyphorus, that's a pretty cool name. Could be worshipped by a core tower. Yes, it could be. However, there would have to be quite a large subaquatic thing underneath the desert. That does happen. There are large bodies of water underneath deserts, so that's something we could consider. What's the best way to make the DM's wife disappear for 5 months? Yes, if I could answer that question, I could probably make a fortune selling instructions on how to do it. Okay. So we've had 2 suggestions so far. One is an inscription that says, "Choose your curse, death or decay." I like that. And Mad Lad says, "Wet footprints of unknown origin leading in one direction." Okay. So I'll go with the wet footprints one, purely because we've already done a translation thing in the temple. So we don't want to keep having to translate to the same characters, doing all the work of whoever's the best at translating or whatever. So let's go with the footprints, and let's say the footprints are leading down the stairs on the left-hand side. So on the left-hand side we have wet footprints coming from here and going down the stairwell. Alright, so down the left side, I'm just going to draw this on the separate side here. Stairwell heads down. And this is where we should have some sort of event should happen that will either suggest a red herring or would suggest that they're on the correct route. So obviously we've got the wet footprints scenario, so let's again do a room. And we've got wet footprints coming in. And let's continue on with the Kuo-Tao idea. I can't even pronounce that properly, but you know what I mean. So let's have this area here collapsed, and standing over the water over here would be a Kuo-Tao. So how do you even spell that? Let me see. To go back through my list here. Kuo-Tao. Which, if I remember correctly, is some sort of fish type people. Alright, so this would be extremely unusual because they're in the desert. and the number being here would, if you want more than just the one, have some in the water. So have some extra ones in here. So they have come to greet this one who's coming back from here. He, if you want some reason as to why he's doing, he would have been going to check the perimeter, check the temple, and he'd obviously gone back prior to the party arriving in the temple. Or he may have been down here, and by the time he, and came back, swam through. By the time he went back, the footprints had dried down here, and then he went down into the second stairwell. So down we have here, we've now got the Crow Tower. Let's also remember that up here is where the oasis is. So this is where the main body of water is. So the further we get towards that, the more water we can add. And we can continue on with the Crow Tower fish guys. Is the more pronounced this is going to be. So remember, the idea of this is that there's Feng Yang, ruler of the Scarab. Now, what would be very interesting is the Crow Tower obviously can't attack across the desert. They're fish people, so surviving in the desert is going to be very, very difficult for them. But their shaman necromancer has discovered a way to bring this guy back from the dead, or as a mummy. So that can be an interesting plot point. So you can see, as we're building the dungeon, starting to think ahead as to why these things could possibly be there. Already very interesting, because who would have guessed that fish people would be raising a mummy in the desert to attack the area or the kingdom or whatever is ruled in this map or land. Okay. All right. So once the Crow Tower are defeated, we should probably then suggest that there's a lot of their sort of implements and things in this room. So it looks as though this room has been tunneled into from below, and they've actually tunneled into this structure or dungeon or whatever you want to call it. So there's a tunnel here. Let me just delete the Crow Tower. Always do special effects. Okay, so there's a tunnel through here. Again, this is underwater, so you don't want to make it too long, because you want to be able to, people to get there in 1 or 2 rounds, not make it terribly difficult. This can then open up into another passageway. Okay, and have suggestions of a large amount of traffic through here. So fish paraphernalia, so lots of Crow Towers, so we'd have to do some research into them as to what their bits and pieces are that they use. So I'm just flicking over here. So that's who's in the dungeon. Right, so as I say, I barely know anything about these people, so as people are entering the dungeon, I can just have a look at this while they're deciding what they want to do. So their special qualities: they're adhesive, amphibious, immune to poison and paralysis, keen sight, light blindness, resistant to electricity, and slippery. So key things to note here would be traps would be poisonous and electrical in nature, because it's not going to affect them. So they're immune to poison, and they don't get affected by electricity terribly easily. So what we can do here then is add a trap in this passage, okay, to suggest that something important is along here, and we'll make this a poison trap. Okay, so a wall sign written in Khaldun that reads "Authorized personnel only." Yes. Okay. Yeah. So those are all the kinds of things that you can add in. I mean, if we're going to continue with this, they would have invaded this space. So any kind of sign that would be put up would be a temporary sign, but we also have to think of their ecology as well. So it wouldn't be made out of wood, because trees don't grow underwater, and they're not going to go above ground because they're sensitive to light, so they're not going to be chopping down trees. So it's more likely that it's going to be something carved out of a shell, like a large shell up against the wall. So that's something we can put here. So there's a large shell that's the size of a shield balancing against the wall with inscriptions carved in it. And those inscriptions read in Khaldun, authorized personnel only. So that would be suggestive of the fact that there's something here. So obviously the players now are getting a hint that there is a trap there, and would continue through here. So the nature of the poison trap, again, we have to think about the ecology of Khaldun, and let's think of something. Okay, how about shark's teeth? So they've extracted a whole bunch of shark's teeth that have been dipped in the poison from extremely poisonous fish, and scattered along the floor. So, you know, if they're not looking, they're pretty difficult to spot. And if you step on these shark's teeth, they're pretty sharp. They're going to go right through your shoe and stab you with this poison. So we have now the fish guys are setting traps with the shark's teeth in a desert temple, trying to raise a mummy lord that's going to lead an undead army against their foes in this country. Okay, so let's see. Everyone's still on this fish group. All right. Small echo. Okay, I'll see if I can sort out the echo, but can't remember what it was last time that turned it off. It's echoing now. Alright, let me just see. Okay. So hopefully that has removed the echo. Alright, so please just respond in the comments to tell me. I await your response. Obviously there is a delay of probably 30 seconds or so. But once that's very realistic. It's worse now. Okay. Twice as long. Okay, hold on. Okay, switched back. How's that? Am I echoing now? Alright, so just am I echoing now? How can it get worse? Anyway, I'm going to turn my webcam off and turn it back on again. Okay, how do I sound now? Okay, so now we just need to know, is it echoing or is it just deep sounding? Major reverb, no echo. Okay. So, is it sounding better now? Let's put it this way. Is it sounding better now than it was before? Okay, so some people it's perfect, some people it's not. Alright, I'm going to continue on. Alright, so we've had the Kuo-Tao with the shield here made out of a shell that has the inscription of no unauthorized personnel. And then we have the trap, which is made out of the poisoned shark teeth. Alright. So this trap obviously needs to be protecting something, and that something should most likely be the shaman who is going to be attempting to raise this mummy. So here we will have another section with water that broken through the floor, and there'll be a whole bunch of Kuo-Tao fish people. We'll just call them fish people now, probably much easier. And the main shaman, who would be a magic level akin to whatever is appropriate to your game. Number of fish people would also be dependent on the number of people. The mic on my headphones is not actually connected to a microphone, it's only getting headphones. Anyway. Alright, so so the level of these people is dependent on the level of your characters, the type of game you're playing, etc. And I would suggest, if it's of a lower level, that the shaman has found some sort of manuscript or book or stone tablet, which is probably a better option. So let's call it a stone tablet. He's got a stone tablet that on it is inscribed the ways of raising this mummy. Let's say that the stone tablet was actually embedded in the wall here, and the Kuo-Tao have been breaking it out of the wall so they can take it to the tomb, which would be on the other side over here. So they've been protecting this area while the shaman and other Kuo-Tao fish people have been bashing it out of the wall. Okay, so here now we have the object that is going to be involved in raising the mummy, and also a subsequent event of the battle here that would cause us to stop the party. So the party here will get attacked by all the other fish people. At this point, we're adding a clock to the dungeon. So this shaman is going to he's just got the stone tablet out of the wall. He's going to take the stone tablet, dive into the water, and being a fish, he can swim all the way to this point here, get out and make his way up the stairs back down to the other side where obviously the tomb is going to be. So that's where it's helpful with the wet footprints. If they've gone this other way before, we need to also consider how to make them go back the other way, so there's nothing actually happening in this area that will lead them back to this main event here. So obviously now the characters will have to defeat all these fish people, go back down the passage, swim down here, jump out here, go back up the stairs, go down the other stairs, chasing the shaman who's got the stone tablets. So that's the clock that's ticking. So they can't just hang around and rest and camp for 3 days and do the usual things that players want to do and get all their spells ready and all this sort of shit, because they know that something bad's going down. This guy's got the stone tablet and they've got to catch him. So it wouldn't be a coral tablet because this tablet would be in the wall of the desert. So this is from the desert culture that the stone tablet is from. The shaman is taking it out of the wall. If it was the fish people, if it was theirs, then yes, it would be made out of coral, but it's more likely that the temple itself would be inscribed on actual stone tablets. Alright, so we head across to this side, and let's assume first that the players have not gone down where the footprints are. They've decided to go the other way first. So we'll just decide on how they would approach this if they hadn't discovered the fish people. So again, we'll have a stairway down. Again, excuse my mouse drawing, it's not the best. Okay. So here we then have, let's say, a corridor, and this corridor would be protecting Fenyang, ruler of the Scarab. So this corridor is more likely to be something that would have all the ornamentation. So let's have some alcoves along here, and let's have these alcoves be suggestive as to what is coming. So let's make these some carved. So carved into the alcoves are images of like Egyptian mummies and things like that, carved as relief into the wall in these alcoves, and somehow light from outside is being channeled down through the eyes, so this corridor is being lit by sunlight coming from outside, or if it's night, make it moonlight, however eerie you want to make it, and also add a whole bunch of holes in the ground. So there's a whole bunch of holes here. Now, this does one of two things. One, it suggests what's coming in terms of ancient pharaoh temple dude by all the reliefs on the wall. It also gives the suggestion that there's a whole bunch of people down this end, which let's say is a red herring. This is more just decoration to emphasize the type of place that they're in. And the holes in the ground, let's say this was a trap, okay, but over the thousands of years that it's been, the trap is no longer functioning. So being ruler of the scarab, let's say that it would have been a whole bunch of scarab beetles that would have come out here, and so let's have in this area here a whole bunch of scarab carapaces, or the shells, the outer skin of a scarab. So Lord Morgan suggests that providing a sense of urgency, maybe the players find remains of a previous group of adventurers who failed to stop the fish guys. I like the idea of that, but you don't want them to have been there. You still want them to be as though they're the first people there. I think that's important. But let's keep that motif of a previous group, and let's have at the end of this corridor, let's have some skeletons. So skeletons here and scarabs here, and these are just corpses or carapaces or bones or whatever. Um, okay, so you've got this idea of there being a trap here, and you're suggestive of the fact that this is dangerous area here, even though it's not actually dangerous at all. Now, of course, you can change this if you want, but one thing I'm thinking of is this tablet that this guy uses raises the mummy, but what it also does is it raises these skeletons and raises these scarabs as well. So we can use that to our advantage in the next area. So probably the best thing now is to continue the idea of protection and have a large area, and in the center of this, that's the weirdest square or rectangle I've ever drawn. Anyway, so in the center of this area is another big room, so you can go around this. This is basically a corridor that goes right around, and there's a main sealed doorway here. Again, stone doorway, and we'll have an inscription on here that will say, "Here lies Fenyang, ruler of the Scarab." Okay, and this door is sealed. Actually, no. Let's make it not sealed. Let's go with the idea that obviously the Kortao have been here before. They know what's here, and that's why they've gone and found the tablet. So it's no longer sealed. Let's have it actually slightly open, so that the idea is that it has been disturbed already. Okay. Alright, so here lies Fenyang, ruler of the Scarab, and you've got the stone door that is slightly open. So, natural inclination is obviously for the characters to first do an investigation of the surrounding area. And I think we should again use this as there was some sort of trap that may have been here, and I think we should have then a whole bunch of openings that suggest that this area would actually fill with water as some sort of trap. And let's have a plate of some kind in front of the door that looks like it's actually been pressed. So again, continuing the motif of the trap has already been sprung. This one's been sprung. And if they look at these, there's just little bits of water that still over the years have been trickling down off the walls. So this area once was filled with water and no longer is, which again lends itself to the fish people having come through at some point. They discovered this. That's how they got in here through the water, and they've discovered this, and now they've drained the water some way, and they are now trying to raise this mummy for whatever purpose they have in doing so. And really the explanation only needs to be for you, because the players don't need to know why. They can make up why in their own minds. And you can just suggest things. But so in here, then you would enter in here, and there would be all the riches that haven't been able to be taken out. So probably some very large ornate statues, things to that effect. Small things like coins and weapons and all that kind of stuff would have been taken already. The Kwartau fish people would have removed all that. So it's really only the large immovable things that would still be there, large artworks, ornate, very large pots, things to that effect, which would also be very difficult for the players to extract as well. And then essentially you would have the large sarcophagus, and that would still be sealed, and that should have the symbol of the scarab on it as well. So Fen Yang, ruler of the scarab. So that should mirror what's on the stone door from the outside. Okay, so this trap that has been, there should probably be something that's keeping this plate down. So maybe there's a pole or something that's been stuck into that. Any easy investigation will say that that's holding that trigger down. So pulling that out, maybe the trap has already refilled with water, and pulling that out, the trap will reset and and if they push the plate again, then the place will fill with water. So there's, and that would fill all the way up to the stairwell here, to the main entrance, which would be bad for the characters, but good for the fish people. Obviously the fish people, there has to be some reason why they've done this, because they don't want to destroy the mummy that's coming through. So even though the mummy's undead, you don't want him breaking apart in the water and all that sort of thing. So inside here, that's if the characters got through here and they haven't discovered the fish people yet, obviously they would just arrive here and they would just find the tomb and all this sort of thing, and that's all hunky-dory. So at this point, because they've gone this way, maybe they hear a sound down this corridor that would sound like wet, slapping feet on the floor, click, 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 click. And that would alert them to the fact that there are people in this area. So that then they can go back down through the water, etc., find the shaman, and then the whole process repeats again. So the shaman's now back down through the water, all the way over, blah, 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 and you get to this point where we're at now, with the shaman. They've been chasing the shaman. He is in here, and he is conducted the ritual. So as they break in, he has just finished reading the inscriptions on the tablet. The tablet's been placed on the sarcophagus or something to that effect, and a shaft of light shines on the sarcophagus, and the lid slowly opens, and out comes Fen Yang. So now you have the mummy to contend with, and the shaman. So at this point it'd just be the shaman and the mummy. You've already dealt with all the other fish people. But, as we said before, this will raise everything in an area. So you've got skeletons and you've got the scarabs to deal with. So scarabs, I think, would just, if they're not listed in the dungeon, the monster's guide, probably just go with some giant beetles or something to that effect. If you wanted to make it more interesting, maybe do some acid-spitting beetles or something to that effect. And you've also then got the skeletons. So you've got 4 or 5 party members that died or killed by scarabs, who are raised now, who will also attack. So you've got the mummy, you've got the skeletons, and you've got the scarabs as a decent faction to deal with. And someone's asking if I'm using Photoshop for this. Yes, this is Photoshop. Yeah, so the mummy is, to reiterate, this is this is in the desert, and this is an Egyptian type pharaoh, Fen Yang, ruler of the scarab, who was underneath a temple in the desert. So his tomb was underneath the temple. The temple was accessible through, and this temple was at an oasis. The temple was accessible through a pool in the middle of the tomb was accessible through a pool in the middle of the temple, which brought us down to this point here. And then we had to swim down this corridor and then rise up where there's only a 5-foot high ceiling, and then there's 2 stairwells, one to the left, one to the right. There's some wet footprints going down down the left-hand side, which is to lure the characters there. That then comes down these stairwells, and they find some fish people, Kua Tower, have broken through the ground here. This one is a scout who is returning. They then have a small battle here. They can then swim down under the water here and pop up in this corridor, where they find a shield. It's actually a very large shell. So this is by the fish people itself, and on that is inscribed authorized people only. And there's a trap in here, which is essentially a whole bunch of shark's teeth on the ground that have been dipped in extremely poisonous fish poison. Through here, then, in this room, there was a fish person, Shaman, who's assisted by other fish people, have been breaking a stone tablet out of the wall. The stone tablet is what is going to raise a mummy, which would be a human mummy, from this, who is Fenyang, ruler of the Scarab, from this other area on the other side. So, at the point of arrival, the Shaman has just released this stone tablet from the wall, and dives under the water here with the stone tablet, and the other fish people attack the party. So the Shaman swims back down here. You can say that he pops his head up here so the characters can see it, and he swims this way, and pops up here and then heads on to this side where he wants to raise the mummy. So the characters defeat all the other fish people, run down the corridor, swim under here, get out of the water, climb the stairs, down the other side, and down here they find some old scarab carapaces, and along the walls are all these alcoves with reliefs of pharaohs and mummies and things carved into the walls, and there's all these little sort of murder hole type things in the ground to suggest that there's a trap here, which the trap has been sprung a long time ago, which is why there's a whole bunch of skeletons lying at this end over here, which would be a former party that expired a long time ago. So they can see the footprints of the Shaman through here, so they can follow that. They come into this area, which is a large open area. Within the middle is another sort of rectangular room. There's a plate here, which is quite obviously a pressure plate, which has been wedged in the spot by a rod of some kind. Along the outside, if investigated, there's all holes in the wall with a little bit of water trickling down to suggest that this is a water-filling area, but it has not been filled with water in some time. And just as a side note, that would probably be how the fish people discovered it, because the temple would have been underwater from being flooded. They would have discovered this, drained the water, and are now attempting to raise the mummy so that it's not raised underwater. So then here is a stone door, and the inscription above the stone door reads, Fenyang, ruler of the Scarab, lies here. The door is open, as it would have been if they had investigated the side first, and then they go inside and they find all the riches that are not portable of the dead king, so large sculptures and large pots and things like that, which the party would find difficult to remove. But they would, there might be some jewels and things that they could pop off that are still available as a treasure reward. So then in the center of that is the sarcophagus. The fish shaman is chanting the resurrection spell that's on the stone tablet, which has been placed on there, and the mummy rises, and with that it also raises the skeletons and the scarabs. And which we said you could use acid spitting beetles from the monster's manual if you wish, or something else that's equivalent, and that's your final battle there. So treasures and things could be whatever they, jewels that can pop out, or whatever the mummy may be wearing, which would be good. So he may have some magical armor, or he may have a magical weapon of some kind, and so he can be defeated in that way. Alright. So that's it. That's a very basic, single level, 4-room, 5-room dungeon. Does anyone have any other suggestions as to how that could be improved? But that's what's it been, 56 minutes. So that was essentially made up as going along. That's how I normally do most of what I do. Obviously, we've thrown in a few curveballs. Having fish people in the middle of a desert is a difficult one, but at least there's a way to bring it about. Is everyone still there? So no other suggestions? Yeah, I mean, if you really wanted to, you could say that this land is very close to this desert that's close to the ocean, and obviously there is an underwater ocean, an under desert ocean of some kind, and there's a war between the fish people and the desert people, and they are attempting to get the mummy to lead the charge against the desert people, and Lord knows why fish people want to do. Maybe they've got some sort of resources, or they've stolen something from the fish people. Stolen something is probably a much better idea, or they killed the leader of the fish people, and this is all a revenge tactic. Alright, so Daniel asks, are you going to use this? And if so, I'd like to see your dungeon all set up. So yeah, I could probably put this together. I don't have any sandstone tiles, but yeah, we're talking 4 rooms and 1, 2, 3, 4 corridors. So there are 5 rooms with the temple. So it'd be a relatively simple build. Again, standard tiles. Instead of using black and white, use brown, yellow, and white. So you get the sandstone look to it. You can cut out the first layer of the cardboard for the water areas, and paint that blue so you've got the water areas themselves. You could do a custom passageway with the murder holes and that sort of stuff. I've done videos on skeletons where you could add the little skeletons on the ground, and then you've obviously got the stairways as well. So again, everything that we've done is pretty much pretty much you're ready to go. It's just really colouring is the difference. And now I want to make a Tomb Raider style water dungeon. Well, what's very interesting is when you have dungeons that are underwater and you need things like rings of water breathing, or the characters need to figure out some way to have oxygen underneath the water. I've done 1 or 2 like that. It adds a whole different dimension to playing the game, is having to then combat underwater and all that sort of thing. Something that's very interesting with underwater is, especially if you use water elementals, they are essentially invisible because they're part of the water. But you wouldn't be able to detect them as being invisible because they're not actually invisible. They're just the same translucency as the water. So that makes it the challenge even more difficult. So underwater is very, very interesting, very, very tricky. But yeah, look, keeping it relatively simple is important, and it can be done on the fly. It's just, especially if you've got some kind of block, as you don't know what to do. We've just taken 2 separate things, fish people and the desert, and we put them together. So sometimes just throwing out random stuff, opening up a random page in the monster manual and going, right, that I'm building a dungeon around that, or I'm building an area based on these people, is essentially all you need to do. And you can get to a point where you can do it on the fly, like we've done here, while you're actually playing. So most of the time I'd have all this ticking over in my head. I wouldn't be getting suggestions from other people, I would be creating it in my head, but sometimes what the players do suggest what can come ahead. So, a player may mention something, and that can then come to some sort of fruition. It can actually bring that into existence. That happens a lot in my games, and the players tend to shut their mouths because don't say things like that, because eventually it appears. So I think that will wrap this up. That's been an hour, and I would like to get some sort of feedback. If you want to ask any questions or anything like that, you can always send me an email. My email is gareth@thedmg.info, and I'll just make this larger so it's easier to see. There we go. So it's gareth@thedmg.info. If you have any comments, suggestions, whatever after this is obviously was done live. If you have any other comments or suggestions, leave them in the comments section below. You can see there were comments that were done live. They won't be in the comments section below after this has been live. That's why they're in the video. So hopefully this has been successful and people enjoyed this. If you did enjoy it, please like button. And send me any suggestions for changes in terms of format and that kind of thing. I may do one or two of these in the future. Maybe I'll do one of these a month, I'm not sure. But it depends on the response and how many people like it. And, the only reason it was being done today was we were going to have a Crafters Tavern, but because Star Wars is opening and it's so close to Christmas, we decided to postpone it. So Scotty and I will be doing a Crafters Tavern. There will definitely be one next month on the fourth Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that obviously will be continuing on. So this may be on a different day, or fill in if we can't do a Crafters Tavern or something like that. But I'll see what the responses are like. And thank you very much for joining me. I'm not actually sure how many people were watching. There were quite a few people in the comments. And so thank you to everyone who did join me from all over the world. It's great to see so many people interested in this sort of craziness. Cheers and good luck.